Eventually, God calls to all of us with challenges and great responsibilities, and God will be right by our side to help us. Listen again. Eventually, God calls to all of us with challenges and with great responsibilities, and God will be right by our side to help us. Last Shabbat, last Saturday morning, a wise 13-year-old uttered these words that he had written down the hall in our large sanctuary. I share them with his permission. That bar mitzvah, Jack Breslow, explained that God chose him to become a bar mitzvah, just as God chose Moses to free the Israelites. And Jax explained honestly, neither he nor Moses felt ready to take on such a responsibility, but both overcame their fear and self-doubt and rose to the challenge. Indeed, this bar mitzvah boy concluded, eventually God calls to all of us with challenges and great responsibilities, and God will be right by our side to help us. Profound words. Jax was, as I mentioned, speaking about himself as a bar mitzvah and about Moses at the burning bush, the portion we read last week. You may recall God appears to Moses amidst the bush and calls Moses, Moses, or Moshe, Moshe, and Moses responds, Hineni, here I am. God then tells Moses, take off your shoes, this is holy ground, and then sets out the mission before Moses. Basically what? It's going to go to Pharaoh. It's going to go to free the Israelites. Moses says, I don't speak well. I can't do this. Ultimately, God offers Aaron, Moses' brother, to be his spokesperson, aka his partner in leadership. Every year I read this passage and I think about the call, the double call, right? Moses, Moses. We learn that no word in Torah is without interpretation or possible meaning. So why the double call? Perhaps Moses doesn't hear God. I mean, anyone in your house need to be called twice for dinner? Or to the phone, or to answer the door? The rabbis, though, speak to the double call, giving several explanations. First, they say it's God's affection for Moses, like Moses, Moses. Another says it's God's great righteousness. He's so righteous, or Moses' great righteousness, that he merits two calls. The Midrash compares Moses to Abraham and Jacob. All three were called with a double call. Moshe, Moshe, Abraham, Abraham, Yaakov, Yaakov. And even Samuel, Shmuel, Shmuel, which the rabbis say is an expression not only of affection, but prompting them to zeal, to go forward with something to do. In other words, that second call is about encouragement to action, urgent action. That call made me think of the words of my bar mitzvah student last week. Imagine, if each of us is called, what are we called to do? I took a bit of a poll online this week. A few of you responded, actually. I won't name your responses, but I'll tell you what some folks have responded when I asked online, what are you called to do? Here are some of the responses. Teach, volunteer, partake of public service, serve as a physician, empower women, advocate for those without a voice, try to make the world better one small action at a time, be a mother and a good friend, be a caregiver to family and friends, act with love and kindness, be my authentic and imperfect self. Just some of the responses. It's fascinating. Years ago, a lot of years ago, some 26 or so years ago, I did as part of a chaplaincy internship at Evanston Hospital. There was a group of 5 clergy. I was the only rabbi. And I listened again and again to my colleagues, all Christian clergy, and I listened to them speak about being called to ministry. I found the word pretty daunting, even intimidating. Called? Like a big voice, like calling to Moses? It seemed so large. I thought, I'm not called. How can they use these words? Moses was called. But over the years, I've come to approach this concept of being called differently. For a call can be a great, large call, a task or a mission. It can be a sense of purpose or direction, and some are big and daunting, like Moses, and some are small. Remember that children's game, Mother May I? Baby steps or giant steps. Some are small steps of being called, knowing inside what we need to do in the world. There's insight we can gain precisely from Moses' call. First, Moses is called out of the burning bush. So he's walking along doing his regular work. He's a shepherd, right? He's looking for sheep. And there's a bush that, as the text says, was full of fire but was not consumed, so it wasn't burned out. So he stops, he turns, and he looks. He then ultimately replies, Hineni, after God calls Moshe, Moshe. Now, I don't know about you, but I haven't seen bushes on fire unless we're in lands of forest fires, and we hope not to see those. But think about it. Moses stopped to look in the ordinary actions of his day. When we stop mindfully to notice the world around us in our everyday walks, in our work, in our errands, in our driving up Sheridan Road, or who knows, what might we notice? We can notice things in nature. We can notice things metaphorically on fire. We can notice things that are beautiful, things that are unsettling. Moses was called to free slaves. We can notice things, people who are enslaved or trapped, who need freeing, leaders who need to be told our truths. We can see things that catch our attention and bring us to stop, turn, and look. And while we may not hear the voice of God calling us really loudly, Lisa, Lisa, or any of our names, we can actually hear a call. We can hear the voice of our own convictions. We can hear the voice, the sounds of our world that beckon us to action, and the calls of our souls that direct us. If we turn, if we stop and turn, and if we listen. But then what? It might be a really daunting call, just like Moses. We might be awed and overwhelmed, like Moses, or in this week in which we honor the legacy of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., you may recall that his towering legacy is one we recall, but he too was a reluctant leader. So what do we do? If we listen some more and look around, we might, like Moses, ask for help or find help. We, like Moses, can say, Hineni, I am here to do the job, even with hesitation or nervousness. And let's remember that Moses was called twice, as a sign of respect, a sign of urging, a sign of affection. I also think the double call was, in fact, so that he could hear the call and focus on it. We can hear our own calls when we listen. We really listen, and when we stop. You might be wondering, think like I was years ago when I heard my colleagues speak. Am I really called? If you ask my bar mitzvah student from last week and me, I would say yes. He said, and I repeat, eventually God calls to all of us with the challenges and great responsibilities, and God will be right by our side to help us. Let us listen. Let us hear the call. Amen. Shabbat shalom. We turn to page 280.